David Sinclair takes 1 gram of NMN a day. Most human clinical trials that showed actual measurable benefits, improved energy, better muscle function, higher NAD plus blood levels, used 250 milligrams. That's 4 times less than what one of the world's most cited longevity researchers takes. Most people buying NMN are somewhere between 500 milligrams and a gram, based on what they've read. The question worth sitting with: where did those numbers come from? And is more actually better here? The NMN market is large and competitive. Hundreds of brands. Dosages ranging from 150 milligrams to over 1,500 per capsule. The marketing implies a consistent logic: more precursor, more NAD+, more anti-aging benefit. That logic isn't wrong at low doses. The problem is that dose-response curves in biology are rarely linear. Plenty of beneficial compounds have a range where they help, a range where they're neutral, and a range where they start doing something you didn't intend. Vitamin A is a useful example. A small amount is essential, a large amount is toxic. NMN isn't in that category, but the principle holds. The evidence for what too much looks like with NMN is newer than most people realize. Before I get into the specific research, let me be clear about what I'm not saying. I'm not saying NMN is dangerous. The human safety data at standard doses is solid across every trial published so far. I'm not recommending anyone stop taking it. What I am saying is that the dose most people have landed on, 1 gram or more, is based largely on self-reporting from one prominent researcher, not on controlled trials measuring dose-dependent outcomes. And the trials that did measure outcomes used substantially lower doses. That gap is worth understanding before you buy your next bottle. Let's go through the major human NMN trials and what doses they actually tested. The 2021 KO University trial, the first well-powered human randomized controlled trial of NMN, used 250 milligrams per day. They found increased NAD+ in blood and improvements in muscle insulin sensitivity in older men. This is still one of the better-designed human studies. The 2022 Washington University trial tested 1,000 milligrams per day in postmenopausal women with prediabetes. They saw NAD+ increases and some metabolic improvements, but no functional benefit that clearly outperformed the 250 milligram KO results. A 2023 trial using MIB-626, a crystalline NMN formulation, tested 1,000 and 2,000 milligrams. They found NAD+ increases at both doses. No additional functional benefit appeared at the higher dose. The 2024 meta-analysis in NPJ Aging, which reviewed 11 human NMN trials, concluded that functional benefits, the outcomes people actually care about, not just blood NAD+ levels, appeared most consistently in the 250 to 500 milligram range. Higher doses showed NAD+ increases without proportional functional gains. The pattern, across the available evidence, going from 250 to 1,000 milligrams, raises NAD+ further. It doesn't appear to raise measurable outcomes proportionally. Here's the study that generated significant debate last year and got limited mainstream coverage. A 2023 paper in Nature Metabolism found that NAD+ supplementation accelerated breast cancer metastasis in a mouse model with active tumors. The researchers weren't testing NMN specifically. They were studying NAD+ metabolism in cancer biology. The mechanism they implicated is the same pathway that NMN activates. The longevity community's response was largely, "This is in mice with existing cancer, not healthy humans taking preventive doses." That response is reasonable as far as it goes, but the underlying mechanism isn't new or controversial. Cancer cells are aggressive NAD+ consumers. That has been known since Otto Warburg's work in the 1920s. Fast-dividing cells, including cancer cells, rely heavily on NAD+ for energy production. The question this raises isn't, does NMN cause cancer? There's no evidence it does in healthy people. The harder question is whether high doses in someone who has undetected early-stage cancer, which is more common than most people assume past age 50, could provide additional fuel to cells that are already dividing abnormally. That's a different question. Nobody has a clean answer to it yet. There's a second mechanism worth understanding, and it's less discussed than the cancer angle. As NAD+ levels rise, an enzyme called CD38 becomes more active. CD38 is sometimes called the NAD+ vampire in research circles. It consumes NAD+ as part of normal immune and inflammatory signaling. When you raise NAD+ through supplementation, CD38 responds by consuming more of it. At moderate NAD+ levels, this is manageable. CD38 does its normal job. But at high NAD+ levels, the kind generated by gram plus NMN doses, CD38 upregulation can create a ceiling effect. You're taking more NMN, your cells are converting it to NAD+, but CD38 is consuming the excess. Your net NAD+ gain at high doses may be smaller than you'd expect from the dose size alone. This is one reason some longevity researchers have shifted their thinking toward lower, consistent NMN doses rather than high doses. The goal is sustained, moderate NAD+ elevation, not a spike that triggers a compensatory CD38 response that partially offsets the gain. So why does David Sinclair take 1 gram? He's been open about this in interviews. He started at a dose that subjectively made him feel a difference in energy. He doesn't claim to have specific clinical evidence that 1 gram outperforms 250 milligrams for his personal longevity outcomes. He acknowledges the human data at that dose is thin. Sinclair is both a researcher and a self-experimenter. Those are two different roles with different standards of evidence. His scientific work on sirtuins and NAD+ metabolism is rigorously controlled. His morning supplement routine is N equals 1. Both can be true simultaneously without diminishing either. Peter Attia takes a different position. He's said publicly that he isn't currently taking NMN because the human evidence for meaningful functional benefit, relative to cost and unknown long-term risk, hasn't cleared his threshold. That's also a defensible position. What isn't well supported? Taking a gram because a prominent researcher does, without understanding that his dose was self-selected, not derived from clinical evidence. The picture is more nuanced than lower is always better. For people in their 70s and older, where NAD+ decline is most severe and the gap between cellular need and available supply is largest, higher doses may be appropriate. The CD38 ceiling effect may matter less than the restoration benefit at that stage. For people under 45 with no significant metabolic dysfunction, the case for doses above 250 milligrams is weak. Your NAD+ decline isn't steep enough yet to require aggressive replacement. For people between 45 and 65 with documented energy decline, poor recovery, or metabolic markers trending in the wrong direction, 250 to 500 milligrams is where the best human evidence lands. The variable that almost nobody accounts for in online NMN discussions is age. A blanket dose recommendation across a 30-year range doesn't make biological sense. The gap between a 45-year-old and a 75-year-old's NAD+ baseline is substantial. Based on current evidence, under 45, generally healthy, 250 milligrams with first meal. Test biological age before and after 6 months rather than relying on perceived energy changes. 45 to 65, 250 to 500 milligrams daily. This covers the range with the best human evidence for functional outcomes. 65 and older, 500 milligrams to 1,000 milligrams may be appropriate, ideally alongside blood work tracking NAD+ levels and guidance from a physician familiar with the research. Cancer history or active treatment. Discuss with your oncologist before taking any NAD+ precursor. This is not negotiable. One more practical note. Timing and absorption from the previous video apply regardless of dose. A well-absorbed 250 milligrams is almost certainly more effective than a poorly absorbed 1,000 milligrams. One more NMN issue worth knowing about. The brand matters more than most people think. Third-party lab testing has found significant variation between what's on the label and what's actually in the capsule. Some popular brands contain far less NMN than stated. A few contain almost none. I tested 11 brands. That video is next. Before you go, 2 quick notes. First, I'm an AI wellness educator, not a real person. Dr. James Chen is a synthetic character built to make longevity science more accessible. Second, everything in this video is educational content based on published research, not medical advice. Before starting any supplement protocol or making significant changes to your health routine, please speak with your physician. Links to all studies referenced are in the description.